time just before the Second World War was prosperous. Stocks were flying high and agriculture was booming. It looked as if the free, unrestrained market could do no wrong as the profiteering public sought money and prosperity, and that's just how things went. But, nonetheless, an economic collapse was coming. The Great Depression, otherwise known as the Dirty Thirties, was a huge economic recession caused mainly by a drop in product demand, money hoarding, and a panic sell-off caused by a small dividend in the stock markets. Some say that agricultural irresponsibility was also at fault for the Great Depression. The growing international economic dependency caused collapses in German industry, resulting in Hitler's rise to power, creating the geopolitical rampage of World War II. The Second World War, tragic and economically damaging as it was, gave immediate rise to an international conference called the Bretton Woods Conference. This meeting, attended by 44 nations, met 10 months before World War II came to a close and made efforts to reduce global poverty in hopes it would postpone another world war. This was done by creating two organizations, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group. The World Bank was initially conceived for the purpose of aiding war-torn nations financially and industrially, though this is no longer their goal. Today, they focus mainly on developing resources in third world countries, aiding industry, providing low-interest loans, and negotiating agreements for the sake of increasing prosperity. The IMF, on the other hand, focuses more on providing high-interest loans to tragedy-stricken countries. An example would be how Haiti, a relatively poor country, was given economic aid by the IMF for the purpose of recovering from their earthquake. The International Monetary Fund is still entirely dedicated to providing large volume short-term loans and is only used in the case of extreme tragedy. Changing the subject, the economists of the time had incredibly substantial work due to the volatile economic era before them. Never before were the international stock market and domestic stock market so strong. Everyone had buying power, and consumerism was on the rise. The first economist for discussion, John Maynard Keynes, had the most radical ideas. He was a proponent for government intervention, deficit spending, and dramatic inflation. He believed that the free market was too amoral, too slow, and too interested in its own propagation, so government interference was necessary. He also believed that investing in industry during a recession could spike demand and jumpstart an economy. The government repays the debt when times are better. However, Milton Friedman and Friedrich Hayek thought contrary. They believed that the government should keep spending to an absolute minimum as to not indebt themselves to other countries. They also believe in Jacob Smith's theory of the invisible hand, which, contrary to how it sounds, is not mysticism. The theory goes that the free market will put demand where the people demand it be, thus allowing perfect efficiency and all people acting in the needs of society without even knowing it. While undeniably less humanitarian, it flies in the face of Keynes's economic theories. Interest and taxation, for Hayek and Friedman, were also very opinionated. They were advocates of low interest and taxation, while decent taxes and interest were crucial to Keynes's theorem, as it was required to pay off debt. Their ideas of inflation also conflict quite strongly. The validity of either philosophies are hotly debated to this day. The World Trade Organization is an adapted version of the GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It was formed out of the GATT in 1995 for the purpose of liberalizing and facilitating trade. They contribute to economic globalization by way of reducing tariffs and international taxes, just as the name suggests. All in all, there are many advantages and disadvantages that come with economic globalization. The advantages include, but are not limited to, increased competition, high employment, foreign trade and spread of technological knowledge, education, culture, and organizations that were made to help with social and environmental problems. Disadvantages that are related to economic globalization are global depletion of resources, unfair distribution of wealth, consumerism and commoditization, low-wage jobs in the developing world, and less government control due to corporations.